Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. For those of you who have seen some of my other videos, you know that I am a huge fan of unit studies and I am talking about them all the time. But one thing that I don't think I've shared with you is that I also do write unit studies. I actually have a lot of free unit studies on my blog, and I have a little store at Teachers Pay Teachers that I'll link in the description box. But that's not what this video is about today. This video is to teach you how to write your own unit studies because it really is easy. So there are two different types of unit studies that you can write. There are ones that are based on subjects, not as in English, math, social studies, but say a subject such as pirates. Or there is another type of unit study that is literature-based, that you base on a particular book. And I'm going to show you how to make both of those types of unit studies. So the first thing that you'll need is a trusty old spiral notebook, unless you are someone who prefers to put things directly on the computer. I'm not one of those people. I really like to have something that I can just pull out right in front of me, so it's typically either a spiral notebook or something that's printed out, but it's really up to you. But this is actually easy because it's easy to tote to the library with me as well. So we're going to start with the subject-based unit studies first. So let's say that you've decided that you want to make a unit study on pirates. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the library and you are going to find as many pirate books as you can. And I shouldn't say as many as you can because you just want to make sure that you find pirate books that are high quality, because sometimes you might find things that look a little bit iffy, a little bit juvenile, something that you might not want to use to teach your kids, but find as many high quality pirate books as you can. Then what you're going to do is you can sit yourself down at a table while you're still at the library, and you're going to page through all of the books. So pretend that these are your books here, and actually these are pirate books. And you're going to find the one that you think encompasses the subject of pirates the best. In other words, it incorporates everything that you want to learn about pirates into one book, and it's easily accessible. So you want it to be something that is simple to go through, but it has to be really comprehensive. So, for example, say if you decide that this is going to be that book that you're going to use. It doesn't mean that you're going to get rid of the rest of these, because I'm sure that all of these books have a little bit of information that is not contained in the other ones. So these you just push to the side for the time being. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this one book that you decided is the one that you really want to base the bulk of your unit study on, and you're going to just page through it, and you're going to try to find vocabulary words. So that is the first thing that I do. I find vocabulary words. And I usually try to stick to about 2 vocabulary words per page, which can be hard because I love words. But you don't want to have 200 vocabulary words for one unit study. So that's the first thing that I do, though. I page through it and I find some vocabulary words. And you really do want to keep the age of your child in mind. Now, if you're teaching a bunch of students like I do, my kids that work together are in varying age levels. So I just tend to have a mixture of different types of words in there. After I write the vocabulary list, the next thing that I do is I will look at the table of contents in the book, and I will see if there is anything in there. This one doesn't even have a table of contents, but I'll see if there's anything in there that mentions something that I would like to go get another book on. For example, I know that a lot of pirates suffered from scurvy because they didn't have the proper nutrition. So I might want to go and I might write the word scurvy down because I might want to go get a book out on scurvy. Then you might want to get a book out, say, on rope tying because they used to tie up their prisoners. And you just look through this table of contents and you try to find anything that you think would be worth going to get specific books out on that one specific topic. So that for now is just a list. After that list, all I do, and I want to mention that there are a lot of different ways to write unit studies. I'm telling you how I do it. So this is just for the people who have no idea how to do it at all. If you have your own way of doing it, that is perfectly fine. This is kind of just my way of doing it, and I'm showing it to you for those of you who don't know how. So anyway, so the next thing that I do is I just page through it, and I find things that offer me ideas on what we could do. For example, on this first page here, I see that it shows his clothing. And so you might want to write down for an activity to make a pirate costume. Or you might want to have them draw a pirate by using the description. You might want to describe to your child what the pirate outfit looked like, and then they have to try to draw it as well as they can just by listening to you say it. There are so many different things that you can think of. And you just keep paging through. And a lot of these books, if you see here, they even have little ideas. Looks like a little belt buckle, I think. Oh no, they're shoe buckles. But anyway, so a lot of these books actually have a lot of really great ideas, so you might want to incorporate those. But you just keep paging through. Right here is a ship's biscuit. So you might want to make some biscuits that pirates would have eaten. And you can learn more about the provisions that they took on the ships with them. You might want to learn about shipbuilding. You might want to have your child make their own treasure map. But the point is that as you're paging through these books, you should be able to get a lot of ideas on things that you can do. Like, for example, this book is awesome because it even tells you how to write a code of conduct, which is something that pirates used. So that is another activity that you could have your child do. And that is all I do when I write unit studies. I just page through, and when I think of an idea, I write it down, and that's an activity. And I try to cover as many school subjects as possible. For example, drawing a treasure map, that could be geography. Of course, learning about pirates is history. If you're learning about shipbuilding, that is science. If you learn about rope tying, that's life skills, and so is making their biscuits. So it really can encompass every single subject, and that is the point of a unit study. After I go through this entire book here, I will page through the rest of the books that I have just to see if there is anything interesting that I missed. And then the next thing that I do is I go back to that list where I wrote down scurvy and rope tying and the other topics that I thought might fit in with this, and I will go and find books for those. So for example, I do have a book here that talks about rope tying. And so then you have that resource there. So after you have all of this together, all you really need to do is write out your book list, because I know a lot of states require you to keep a book list. So keep this resource list. I suggest that you write it right in the front of your unit study. As I did here, I'll show you. See, I don't have the books written there. Oops. But anyway, here's the vocabulary words for a unit study that I wrote. I don't know if you can see that because that's in really light pencil. But what I usually do is I will usually list all of the books very first in the unit studies that I write. That way, they're there. If you want to go back to this unit study later, you already know all the books that you really liked using. After that, you're going to list your vocabulary words. And third, you can list all of the activities that you've decided that you want to do in this unit study. That is all that it really takes to write a subject-based unit study. I know that a lot of people think that it takes so much time, but I've got 11 kids and I love writing unit studies. And if it was something that was really, really, really time consuming, I wouldn't do it. Now, I'm not going to say that it takes 10 minutes. Of course, sometimes it might take me a few days to write a unit study. Not a few days all the time, but, sitting down here and there to get it done. But it is doable. Especially if you have a busy life, a large family, just do it in little increments and you can get it done. So it's not as difficult as people think. And another thing that you want to do in writing this unit study is just make sure that once you have all of the activities planned out, that you do have all of the materials that you're going to need for those. For example, if you're going to make the little shoe buckles, you'll want to have that foil and the cardboard that it showed. If you're going to learn rope tying, make sure that you have some sort of rope. But that's really all you need to do to write a subject-based unit study. I was going to say subject-based literature. That made no sense. So now moving on to a literature-based unit study. Now again, a literature-based unit study is based on one specific book. And it really, the way that you write these are really, really similar to the way that you write subject-based unit studies. Oh, going back to the subject-based unit studies, one thing I forgot to tell you. Some of the books that you might want to gather up would be books that are good for read-alouds or for your child's independent readings, and they can be fiction. Like Treasure Island would be perfect to read for this. It could be a read-aloud, and then maybe if your child is younger, you could have them read Pirates Past Noon. the Magic Treehouse book. So yeah, you do want to incorporate some fictional books that tie in with that too. That really helps to bring kids' interest levels up. So anyway, now back to literature-based. I'm always all over the place. So here is the book, for example, that you want to write your literature-based unit study on. I have never written one on this. I have never even read this book yet. I just pulled this off of our shelf. But this is The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan, and it's in the Egypt series. Oh, I almost forgot. Egyptian mythology series that Rick Riordan wrote. So anyway, this is actually something that I do plan on writing a unit study on in the future. But anyway, so for a literature-based unit study, you start out with the same thing that you do in the subject-based. Brainstorm everything that you can think of that pertains to Egypt or Egyptian mythology. So you might write down, of course, pyramids, mummies, sarcophaguses. Is that the right word? I don't know. And just brainstorm everything that you can think of that has to do with Egypt, the Nile, Africa, everything that you can think of. After you do that, page through the book. Now, I typically say in the subject-based one, when you're using one book to do 2 vocabulary words per page, you might not want to do that with something this thick. But what I usually do when writing literature-based unit studies, I do focus on chapters. Okay, so for example, chapter 1. You might want to page through chapter 1 and come up with a list of vocabulary for chapter 1. And then you do the same thing for chapter 2, chapter 3, and all the way down the line. After you've got your vocabulary, you want to go back to the beginning. And this is where it really helps if you have read the book before, you have some familiarity with it. And it will really help you to know the things that you should write about. But even if you haven't read the book before, you can just skim through it and you can get a good idea. So you want to go back to chapter 1, skim through it, and see what sorts of activities you can come up with. So right away, it's talking about the Egyptian gods. So you might want to have your kids look up the Egyptian gods and see what they stood for. Here, it talks about spontaneous combustion. There's science right there. Have your kids find out what spontaneous combustion is. And then it talks about an orchestra. There's music. You could research an orchestra. And it's so simple to just page through these books. There are so many ideas that just can come at you when you're looking for them. And again, you really want to focus on covering all of those school subjects because, again, unit studies are supposed to be cross-curricular. Well, not supposed to be. They're intended to be cross-curricular. There's no unit study police who's going to go after you if you haven't covered all the subjects. But that really is the purpose of them. So, and again, you do the same thing. I tend to break it down to chapters. You don't have to do it that way. I find it easier to break down the vocabulary and the activities into chapters so that you know where these activities and words pertain to. So you go through chapter 1, write a list of activities for chapter 1. Go to chapter 2, write a list of activities for chapter 2. And what I've actually found is that a lot of times there are so many ideas for one chapter that rather than rather than reading one chapter a day to the kids, because I usually do the literature-based unit studies on read-alouds, what I typically do is read one chapter a day. But sometimes there are so many fun things that you can do that you might want to only do one chapter a week. And if you're going to do that and it's a longer book, it's probably a good idea if it's a book that you own and not a library book, because a lot of libraries will not let you keep books out, say, for like 12, 18 weeks. So there's that too. So that really is it for writing a literature-based unit study too. And again, since you wrote down that list of ideas, for the mummies and everything, you might want to go to the library and get books out on all of those things. You could have your kids use those for notebooking. You could go to the library and have your kids find other silent reading books that pertain to this. I know, for example, a couple years ago, I wrote a unit study on Greek mythology, and we used the D'Aulaire book of Greek myths for this. So even though that was our main unit study, you hear my cat meowing. So anyway, even though that was the main unit study, or the main book for the unit study, my kids actually went out and they got their own little gods and goddesses books that they read on their own. So and you know what? They really loved that mythology unit study. That one is on my blog. If you look up free unit studies, my cat, she wants to make an appearance. So it's on my blog for in the free unit studies, and it's also on Teachers Pay Teachers on my store there, which again, I will link to the bottom. And one more thing that I do want to add is that I actually am in the ending process of publishing my very first unit study book that is going to be sold on Amazon. It is a unit study on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I will let you know when that is all ready. I'm so excited. I'm waiting for the proof copy. Oh, Luna. I'm waiting for the proof copy to come in the mail. So when that's all settled, I will let you know when that is available. If you have any questions about writing unit studies, leave a comment. If you have any tips that you think would be helpful, feel free to leave a comment there too. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And you know what? I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I do have my own Facebook group that is filled with people who love encouraging each other and love giving each other tips on living a relaxed homeschooling life. So if you're really looking for a group of people to offer advice to and to get advice from and just to have a sense of community with, I really suggest that you join our group. I will leave the link down there too. And I hope you have a great day.